There we go. Yeah. Hello, hello, hello. David, that first song you sang, Give Yourself to Love, I had an immediate well of emotion come up because I have a connection to that song from many years ago and haven't heard it for a while. And then it was like, ah, and I just started to cry. So you did it really well. Thank you so much. Okay, so it is nice to be here. Nice to see everyone. And this was a fun talk to kind of put together. There's some interesting aspects in here and got a lot of different directions. You probably saw the title for today's talk listed as Images Appear Larger Than They Are. This implies that the object in the mirror may be closer to you than it really is. But I'm going to flip the statement around and then we'll come back to it further down the road. I want to say instead, objects in the mirror are closer than they appear. Does that kind of mess with your head a little bit? Objects in the mirror are closer than they appear. This implies that the objects in the mirror are further away than they really are. And by the way, does this statement sound familiar to anyone? It happens to be the small print on your side view mirror, only on the passenger side of your car. So now I'm envisioning people want to jump up and go right out to their cars to check, right? Objects in the mirror are closer than they appear. I have to kind of admit a little sheepishly that every time I hear this statement, when I read it, when I look at it, my brain has to do a little work with the words and the image. Let me think, does that mean that the picture is bigger or smaller? And I really have to kind of work with that. I don't know why my brain doesn't accept that sentence very well. But I have to share the image that came to mind when I got this title. It's an old cartoon from Gary Larson from many years ago, and I love his stuff. One of his frequent characters that he loved to use was a lady with horned-rimmed glasses. But I have to say, she had these glasses, but there was never detail for the eyes in these glasses. Gary Larson always drew her the same way. Her hair would be up on a bun, and she was very matronly. And she would wear these horned-rimmed glasses, but there'd be no eyes. Anybody remember her from those cartoons? Well, in the cartoon, she's sitting in the car, and you see her from behind, as if you're in the back seat of the car. And she's looking at the passenger window to that side view mirror and what's behind the car. And what she sees in this mirror is a giant monster eyeball. So the giant eyeball is looking back at her in the mirror. Now just think about the message. Objects in the mirror are closer than they appear. And this eyeball is as big as the car. So how big must that thing be that owns that eyeball? Because the mirror is making it supposedly appear smaller than it really is. And it fills the entire mirror. Well, it's one of my favorite things. I love his stuff. So taking the wording of that a little differently, the object in the side view mirror would normally be just another car that's as big as the car that you're sitting in, right? But the function of the mirror acts like a convex mirror to make the object, the other car, seem further away so that the mirror can actually give you a wider view of what's behind you. And it can take in a whole lot more detail too and expose any blind spots. So the cars and any detail will tend to appear smaller. The lady cartoon character is looking in this mirror to witness what's behind her. Now, let me ask you, what need does the passenger have to watch where they've been or to keep checking what's back there? The driver doesn't do that. The driver may quickly glance to that side view mirror for safety reasons and to make sure he's not too close to any object on that side. But the driver is always watching what is ahead, right? Scanning the horizon for the destination where they're going, looking for obstacles, looking forward at what is new and what's coming. The roadmap that the driver is following and the destination is based on that present moment that the person is driving. But this passenger is not in the present moment when they're looking at the side view mirror, and which is showing her where she's been. So I want to use this analogy and metaphor of the side view mirror. It's a lens that takes these images behind you and it compacts the whole scene behind you on a small screen, shrinks it down so that you can see more of the picture behind you that's in the past. Now, why is that important to note? As humans, we tend to go back and forth between the present and the past, and the present and the future. But we tend to look more in the past. In our metaphor, think of the car as a person. And the driver and the passenger have this interesting relationship of constant movement between what's being seen in the present moment and the images of the past and what's behind them. Sometimes we tend to stay there a while in that mirror watching what's behind us, and we reminisce. We might get emotional about how things were. We might stay too long and become re-enmeshed in the emotion of an old event. And maybe we begin to feel some anger or some loss, or maybe something happy, but we begin to feel those emotions. We have a thought about something in the past that pulls us right back there. When that happens, we get a visual, that brings up an emotion on all kinds of levels. And then sometimes we get anchored there for a while. Your attention gets locked in, and where your attention goes, energy grows. Your attention, energy, emotions, feelings, images, all of it well up. And then if it's something that is unhealed or unresolved, it gets too easy to find yourself right back there again in the thick of it. I bet I'm not the only one who has experiences like that once in a while. Dr. Joe Dispenza, the neuroscientist and chiropractor from the documentary What the Bleep Do We Know, and he's also travels around a lot with his workshops. He says this when he describes memories. Your brain does not know the difference between what is real in the external world and what you imagine in your mind. It does not know the difference. It doesn't know the difference between the experience that's creating the emotion and the emotion that you're creating by thought alone. So the body is believing it's living in the past experience. Wow, think about that for a minute. If you're thinking about it and feeling it, your body thinks you're right back there again in it with all the juices flowing and everything. Let me read that again. Your brain does not know the difference between what is real in the external world and what you imagine in your mind. It does not know the difference between the experience that's creating the emotion and the emotion that you're creating by the thought alone. So the body is believing it's living in the same past experience. It doesn't just believe it's reliving the experience. Your body thinks it's there again, right now. So when you're caught up in emotional memories, do you think it might sometimes affect your judgment at some point in the current moment? It does for some people. It'll activate them. Emotions can be controlling. It's happened to me, not too proud to say it. I've had a spontaneous reaction sometimes just pop right out of me, and I'll just wonder, like, where did that come from? It kind of takes over, excuse me. Or sometimes I'll be washing the dishes, and my hands are busy, and then my mind will begin to wander, and I'll go into some past memory that'll just grab me emotionally, and zoom, my mind is off. I'll come out of one of those memories and I have to talk myself off the ledge sometime. Lynn, take a long breath. That was a long time ago. You dealt with it, you forgave it, but maybe you need to do a little bit more work on it. Or maybe it might sound like, Lynn, you dealt with that a long time ago. No one else knows where the bodies were buried. What's for lunch? Well, that's probably not the best response, but you have to wonder where those things come from sometimes. If you do not have a toolbox or a personal collection of processes for self-work to choose from to bring yourself back to center in those moments, to come back to current time, acknowledging that that was the past and this is now and things are different, it can become a control button. It can affect your choices in real time. When that happens, we've given too much importance to things of the past. Emotions have the power to do that. Unhealed or unresolved issues from the past can become the control button and the decision factors. Let's go back to the side view mirror for the moment. The structure of the mirror is created to make the images behind you small enough to fit in as much of that scenery as it can. So the choices of the events in a picture of the past are innumerable. There are many things to review. It's like, ooh, what do I want to relive today? I kind of tease a little bit when I do that, but it's not a conscious decision that we make. But there are people who do spend a lot of time living in the past because it doesn't feel good to look at the road ahead. Now, why is that? It's different for every person, I suppose. We miss people, we miss places or a lifestyle, or it's unfinished business. And maybe the current life moments are unfulfilling. Maybe it's too scary and uncertain to look at the future. And I think we're kind of in one of those time frames right now, actually. This past week, I started teaching one of our new certificated classes that's offered to our centers. It's titled Mental Equivalence. We're learning that the law of mental equivalence is like a magnet that draws to you the exact thing that you have deeply lodged in your subconscious mind. What's in your subconscious is a magnet. It never stops working. So the experience you're currently living right now is the equivalent to what you mentally picture of yourself in this moment deep within your mind. Oy vey. Yeah, it's a magnet, and it expresses what you think about your reality. So here's the thought moment for you. Now, go back to the comment I said from Dr. Joe Dispenza. The mind does not know what the difference between a memory and a live current event. All the same chemicals in neurons are firing. So when you go back into that memory with thoughts and visuals and emotions and feelings running through it, what's to keep it from magnetizing the same kind of experience again and again? We are unconsciously providing an inward acceptance to what's being created through these images and feelings that we keep having. Yeah, so maybe that's how we develop patterns in our life. One of the wonderful things about our science of mind philosophy is that it teaches us to take a step back, to learn to view our life differently, the whole picture, not just the side view mirror, not just the rear view, and notice what we like about it and what we don't like about it. It teaches us to take responsibility for it and make changes if we choose to. The side view mirror, the rear view mirror, all mirrors provide an opening into our conscious and our subconscious landscape and offer the opportunity to take note of the mental equivalents, the memories, the magnets that run the show of our lives. They are driving the car. When we come across events and memories of our past that are still emotionally charged, hopefully we can make the choice to do what we can for healing work, or for some self-help processing, to unplug that emotional charge. When we can do that, it's no longer an element that causes us to make choices and decisions based on a past event or pain that we still have, or something that's not relative to the present moment. We can take charge and be in the driver's seat, looking forward at the clear choices in front of us. Reverend Janice asked the question, how do we decide what's really worth giving attention to? Well, first, we take an honest look at what we're experiencing in our life. And are we happy or not? Do we still have moments of angst when a memory flashes up for us? Can we draw a line from maybe that memory to something in our current life that it may be related to? Are we spending too much time in the side view mirror? And are we ready to shift over to the driver's seat and take control? Okay, now what? Well, Ernest Holmes in Science of Mind, the text, page 282, gives us a good example. He says, the way to proceed is to begin right where you are. It's not scientific to accept to begin somewhere else. One who understands the systematic use of the law, the flow of God, will understand that they are where they are because of what they are. They will not say, I must remain here because of what I am. Instead, they will begin to disclaim what they appear to be. As their statements release the wrong subjective tendencies, providing in their place a correct concept of life and reality, they will automatically be lifted out of their condition. Impelling forces sweeping everything before them will set them free if they trust in spirit and the working of the law. To put that another way, we create a new statement, a positive, affirmative, present moment statement, and view of what we want to begin experiencing. Emmett Fox says, do not dwell on negative things, but replace them, supplant them with the right constructive things. The law of mind is that you can only get rid of one thought by substituting it for another. So we'll just get rid of the old magnet and replace it with a new one that we choose. We create a new vision for ourselves, a healthy emotional path, a new perception, a new mental equivalent to create the change for what we would rather see in our life and how we might want to take charge of our life. We take action. These statements and new images are some of the tools you might use to heal, to forgive, to release, and most importantly, to neutralize the emotional charge of a past experience. You don't have to repeat the past. So I need to go off on the tangent here for a moment, and I might get a little technical. I tend to do that. I really loved that documentary I mentioned earlier, What the Bleep Do We Know? I probably need to watch it again and get it out of my system. I think it's calling to me, which, by the way, you can watch it for free now on YouTube. It was a series of professionals and scientists, doctors, quantum scientists, and it was created with the intent of expressing the neurological processes and so-called quantum uncertainty of life. I liked all the scientists and what I learned, but there was one scientist in particular that I've never quite gotten out of my head that really got to me. It was David Albert, Dr. David Albert. Professor and Director of Philosophical Foundations of Physics, Columbia University, specializing in philosophical problems of quantum mechanics, philosophy of space and time, and philosophy of science. Whew. I bet his brain is this big. That's a mouthful. He said that quantum mechanics talks about the great mystery of the direction of time. Our fundamental laws of physics do not make a distinction between past and future. So why should we be able to remember the past and not know the future? If we can affect the future with our current actions, why can't we affect the past? It's a great question. When I know the mechanics behind something and the possibilities, my mind wants to jump right in and use it. I love to know why things happen, especially in our philosophy. So that's why I wanted to share his particular piece of information with you. Scientific proof that we can allow the past to control us. We do sometimes, or we can control it and we can make changes. Now, I can also imagine that most of us might have a little bit of trouble to really grasp that new concept about time and believe the idea and work it, because we taught at a very fundamental level that time is sequential. We're taught you cannot go back. However, even our own science of mind teaches us that we can change our reaction and our perception to the past with our science of mind treatment. But that's a whole nother talk. But we do make a difference. Not just that we definitely do make a difference in how we are affecting our past once we make the decision to do so. And wait a minute, haven't we already been discussing how even just a thought can take us back there and our body thinks we're right there again and it feels so real? Yeah. So let's just take a big breath for a minute. Let all of that kind of soak in. Are you aware that most of our thinking is actually unconscious? We have monkey mind and babble chatter and self-talk that we don't consciously initiate, but it's going on all the time. The mind chatter can lead us unawares down a spiral of daydreaming or old memories, and we can get really lost in that space. Do you have times where you're driving somewhere and you kind of wake up at the destination? It's a little scary, isn't it? Because you don't remember the details of the drive. There's an automatic part of your brain that knows how the car functions, takes care of it for you, and gets you to your destination safely. Meanwhile, you've been on a subconscious journey into those thought caverns of fantasies and past memories. Ernest Holmes says, we all have a definite content of unconscious thinking, of unconscious expectation, unconscious frustration, and desire. This is just as much a part of our process of our thinking as the words we use consciously, and It's just as certain to be operated on by the flow of life. So this, I think, is where the work is done. We must begin a process of conscious statements, affirmations, and pictures of what we want to change our life experience into, and change old patterns and habits. These are the things that we can have in our personal self-help toolbox. Earlier in the talk, I said, where your attention goes, your energy flows. I'll add to that this statement that what I think, I believe, what I think about, I bring about. What I think, I believe, what I think about, I bring about. A number of years ago, I spent a lot of time listening to the recordings of Abraham, who's channeled by Esther Hicks. Her wording for staying in the past was continuing to beat the drum over and over again. One of her suggested exercises was to reframe the parts of your life that you're not happy with. So I would write a new story of certain events from my past, or even where my life was currently at the time, and I would rewrite it with a positive outcome for what I wanted. Maybe I wanted to respond differently or something, or I wanted to, maybe somebody else to, but I wanted a different outcome. So I would make a new story about that. And when you do this, you're in your conscious mind stating with pictures and feelings a new experience. You're physically putting it on paper. And that's a really good, another helpful tool. Your body and your subconscious takes that in. Journaling is another really wonderful tool. It's a way to acknowledge your past experience that may still be causing you pain, but without judgment. Sometimes the pain from the past can be in a disconnect pattern, and that may be why they're still painful for us, but the journaling can help to reintegrate them into your life in a healthy way so that they become a part of you and help the healing. It helps to bring order to your deepest thoughts and fears and enables you to learn from the person who knows you best, you. And a very interesting thing about writing when it becomes a consistent practice and you write without interruption, it becomes like a meditation and you can get lost in it, like moving out of your conscious mind a bit, and your inner self will start to answer and talk to you through the writing. It's pretty amazing, but it's really healing. When we're writing affirmations for change, you should state only what you want to experience in your life now. Don't say, I won't be sad anymore, because your mind will focus on sad. Say, I am happy now and from now on. And I know Reverend Janice teaches great classes on affirmations and how to write all that. And how about doing a vision board? Gather some fun magazines with colorful pictures and create a collage of images that represent things you want to do, what you want to be, and places you can see yourself going to. And keep that vision board in a place where you can see it all the time. Have it represent that you are deserving and that you love yourself. Your positive thoughts and actions are working to bring you into that present moment, to heal old emotional wounds. And sometimes we may need some support with prayer partners or maybe a counselor. And this will help to keep the progress consistent and to make the changes and break the old patterns. It's truly doable and worth it. The title that Reverend Janice gave for this talk, we're back here. It is Images Appear Larger Than They Are. The appearance of the images from our past may seem larger than they are, but in truth, they're not. And that only happens because we have given them power. For they're only a memory, and we can move on from the memories. Yes, we remember, and no, we do not need to allow them to drive the car or the moment or any decisions in the present moment. We can learn something from each memory and still continue to live in the present. And they become only a brief reference for good. They serve as information at that point, but they do not require an emotional reaction. Dr. Joe Dispenza states, a memory without an emotional charge is called wisdom. A memory without the emotional charge is called wisdom. So for this week, take notice of things from the past that show up in your mind's eye, your personal side view mirror. If it becomes one of those things that takes you back in time emotionally, and you come out of it shaking your head, remind yourself that that was then and this is now. And ask yourself with love, does this issue or event need a little more work? You can contact one of your practitioners for support and treatment, or use something from your own toolbox and turn it into a memory reference point of the past. Affirm it is no longer a thing with an emotional charge. And know that this point forward, it is wisdom and you are wise. In this way, you are in charge of what is truly worth giving attention to. Emma Curtis Hopkins says, when you determine to control yourself, understand that it is God's control, and you will rise in joy and wisdom. This is your fiat. Let divine wisdom now be demonstrated by the perfect judgment with which I administer upon affairs. And so it is. So let's take that into prayer. So take a deep breath with me and just kind of relax everything after all that information. I recognize right here, right now, in this moment, there is only that one mind, that one heart, that one love, that one knowing, that one truth. That everything that we need, that everything that we are, that everything that happens right here, right now. Every experience that has been revealed to us in our lives, whether it was past, present, or those that are to come, are already expressed in the mind of God. Everything purposely provided for us to learn more about ourselves, to gain more love and understanding about ourselves, to learn who we are in truth, and to learn what we need, what we desire, and what we choose to have in our life to be a sovereign being, to be in control, and to move forward on our path of greatness and of love and of who we choose to be. For that's really why we are each here, to be truly what we are and who we are, to learn more about love, to learn more about life itself, and to learn about the power of the mind and how we really are already whole and complete. I'm grateful for this truth and to know that this is what it is. Knowing as we go forward in this week to come and the days, no matter what it looks like, no matter what the appearance in our lives, for things are so different right now. If it triggers an emotion that may be connected to the past, remember that this moment is the only moment there is. And no matter what is going on around you in the appearances, acknowledge safety, acknowledge love, and acknowledge the guidance that comes from the Spirit Source, God itself, that all is well, and that no matter where you are, where I am always taken care of, and all is provided. So I give thanks for this, give thanks for the word, give thanks for the group, give thanks for this moment, even though each individual is in a different location. In the mind of God, in Spirit itself, everything is always in the one. And in the center of that is love. So I give thanks for this word and for the outcome of this knowing. And I let it be, and together we say, and so it is.